So I stand here before you, declaring and decreeing for myself to be self-emptied, to be emptied of the egoic self, the concept and a thought system of fear, of a conditioning in which we have been living, moving, and having our being is. And yet here we find ourselves in a resurrected state. And we can honor that. And in the statement, may I be self-emptied and God-filled, Spirit-filled. I stand here as the resurrected self, the one self, having released all of the fragmentation of the separation and decreeing and declaring to walk forth as Christ, as love, as beauty. This is what we anchor in this spiritual community, this mystical community that we are calling forth from within ourselves, not just to talk about the story, not just to have a holiday, but to be the living, breathing embodiment of what the message was here to show us. That's what we are here to be about. And in this, there is a celebration, truly. I always laugh the Sunday after Easter, or a couple of Sundays after Easter. I'm like, okay, now what? Right? Now what? I mean, we've got all these months to go before Christmas, right? And then Christmas to Easter is so fast. And then we just keep circling around in this story. And what I've been saying is that when we get the story, which means when we not only can repeat it, but when we live it, then we get to release that story because we're releasing the story. We're not, no friend here, we're not releasing Jesus. We're releasing the story about something that happened. And we are embracing the gift of it, which is alive and well within us now. And so when we get the story, just like any of the story of the crucifixion experiences in your life, those things that look like sickness, those things that look like death, those things that look like disharmony and war, when we begin to look at these experiences and cross out the reality that they have for us, cross out, crucify the power that we have given these things, then we can rise when we get the message. And so the now what, say now what, now what do we do? Now we walk forward. We walk forward with this knowledge, with this remembrance, and we be it to the best of our ability in this moment. There's this bishop who you may be familiar with. His name is Carlton Pearson. And there's a Netflix movie and show about his experience. He was a Pentecostal minister. He was a protege of Oral Roberts. And in his own spiritual journey, he got to this point where he was preaching that gospel, this gospel. And he had a spiritual awakening. But meanwhile, he's preaching this gospel to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, a mega ministry. But in his awakening, what he got, what he discerned, what he realized, what he came to know, is that there is no hell. There is no hell. And what he says, if I say everybody's going to heaven, then I can't raise money from you to get me to keep people out of hell. Let's say that again. If I say everybody's going to heaven, then I can't raise money from you to get me to keep people out of hell. Hell sells. Hell and damnation sells. Now, I don't want to denigrate a way of being that we have matriculated through. I don't want to dismiss our human trajectory. But what I do want to do is say that it is now time for us to claim our identity. It is now time for us to claim heaven. It is now time for us to claim and declare who we are, what we are, and how we serve, which we do together. And the title of the movie on Netflix is called Come Sunday. Called Come Sunday. And it's really good. I encourage you to watch it. But in his revelation, he had to stop preaching what he knew was not true. And people walked away. And they stopped supporting him. Because it wasn't popular. Because hell sells. And so what I want to share with you is that the second part of his ministry, what it came to be, was called Come Monday. Come Monday. So on Sunday, we can speak these truths and it feels really good. It felt really good to celebrate Easter and to talk about resurrection. But our post-Easter message, that whole time period between now and Christmas, is our Come Monday experience. What are we going to do? How are we going to live our teaching, breath by breath, moment by moment, from Sunday to Sunday, come Monday? And that's what we're here to do in this spiritual community. That's what we are anchoring. And so I say, I've been talking about a new season. This is our new season. And it starts right now. And we incorporate the previous season. Generally speaking, we don't cry over it. Generally speaking, we don't mourn it. Although I have a little, because there are some people who aren't physically here right now, and that happens here in this season. But metaphysically, we anticipate and expect the seasons to change. And we herald in a new season. And what we are doing in our spiritual teaching and practice is we are claiming the gifts of what our brother Jesus, as the example life, came to show us. And when he said things like, "This you shall do, and greater," it wasn't lip service. And we pay homage and honor by living the message of the commandment that was given to love one another. To love one another, to forgive one another. And to have the realization of the great demonstration that we are not a body, not a physical body. We have a body, but we are spirit. And as Christ, we are unlimited and free. So there's this period that we don't talk that much about, that after in the story, after there was a resurrection period where Jesus appeared to people, if you follow the Gospels, at least 3 times, appeared to individuals in a resurrected form. And this title today is called The Elevated Self. a form. And so what shifts pre-crucifixion, pre-resurrection, post-resurrection is how we surrender. That the body is no longer the vessel and the vehicle for an ego mind, a mind of separation and fear and loss and sickness, but we begin to surrender the body, the physical body, the body of our affairs, and how we experience the world. We begin to surrender that to spirit. And when we do that, a shift changes in the body of our affairs, in the physical body. And that's why I invite us to always shift in our seat when we do the prayer, when we do the attunement. And then when we shift, so I'm going to say this, I have to be careful how I say this, pre-shift versus post-shift. Say that 5 times. And to do my verb. Pre-shift versus post-shift. Is that we become that embodiment. That we realize that the body of affairs no longer had power, that there's only one power. That's what we always say. Our unity principles say this. It begins with, there is one power, one presence in all the world, God of the good. And then the second principle is that, and we are one with it. And then it goes on to say that we get to decree and declare as creators our experience. And then we do that through prayer and through meditation. And then finally it says, we live the truth that we teach. Come Monday. Come Monday. When I was a little girl, I wasn't really little. I was like adolescent little. I was very close to my mom. And we had a living room that was kind of how we have the theater ropes in a way. Like we weren't really allowed to go in there much. It was kept pristine. And there was a fireplace, and there were these 2 chairs. They were like this olive green, and my mother was sitting in one of those chairs. And I remember having this distinct moment where I wanted to sit in her lap, but I knew I was getting too big. You know, she wasn't very big. I wasn't very big, but I was getting taller. But I went and sat in her lap anyway. And I remember this as a moment that inside my little girl brain said, I don't know that there was like a maturity that was dawning. I don't know how many more times I will be able to do this. I'm getting too big for her to hold me in that way. My legs and my arms were kind of spilling out. But she embraced me anyway. And we had that moment of love. Not long after that, I don't ever remember having that particular experience again. But I can have it right now. But looking back, shortly after that, in my maturing, I separated from my mom and dad, my family. That it was important for me, and this is what adolescents go through, like we do this distancing. We have to become individuals, right? Only to have years later the return, right? There are different eras of our maturing in our spirituality, right? Different eras. Part of this new season that I'm talking about is that we are in this old season, new season, this in-between time where we haven't completely fulfilled the story of Jesus in our experience, but there's something else that's calling us forward. Right? And part of what our role is right now is to answer that call. We've been talking about the call all year. And we answer the call of our hearts. That the one that was known as Jesus, who became the Christ, who is the example life, taught us through learning. And that we learned of the mind and of the intellect, only to arrive at the best understanding that we could. But something new is calling us forth, and it is called the way of the heart. And we will talk about this more next week. It's called the way of Mary. And that both the way of Jesus and the way of Mary are required to be as Christ. You see, that word Christ is not male or female. It's wholeness. It's unified consciousness with God. And it was certainly exemplified by Jesus, but it was also exemplified by Mary. And that the combination of the two is what we are being called for as we go from this one season to a new season. That we unify the ways of learning of mind. I'm not talking brain, I'm talking mind, divine mind, God mind, that is accessed through the intellect, but is then ultimately surrendered to the mind and thoughts of God. And we unify it with the heart, the infinite heart, the expansive heart, relationship and relating. And it's this integration that calls us forth now. Our Come Monday experience is an and both experience. That if we look at it biblically, we have the Hebrew scriptures which focus primarily on the history of a people committed to the law. This is how you live. But spoke of a prophecy of a new way that then became fulfilled by the one named Jesus and others, the one named Jesus, exemplifying, being an example life of a new way. The Christ predates Jesus. It's a principle. It's a principle. And it was inherent in Mary as well. And we have it inherent within us. It is the light of our being that the reading talked about when it said, all faith is faith in the unknown through knowing, as a glimpse of fleeting light in darkness provides for knowing of light. The spark of the divine is inherent within us. And the only issue that we've had is we've been focused on something else. On individualizing ourselves, of separating ourselves. Not unlike the maturing child who has to go through that period, right? So that I can reflect upon who I am, separate from Creator, from parent, only to come back in a new way. Only to come back receiving the gifts that have already been given, and to know that I am worthy to receive them and that they are mine. The gifts that have been given are for us, not to talk about, but to be the living, resurrected example, to begin to shift our consciousness, our full attention, appreciation, and awareness away from the outer and to turn within to the inner. The embrace that my mother gave me that day was humanly limited because I viewed it as form, as body. I still have a relationship with her, and the embrace is everywhere. It's expansive. And that's what we have within us, this expansive embrace of love, of the Christ mind and heart that can embrace all of the happenings of the world and see them all as projected, unwanted fears and feelings that come Monday, we bring back home. And we begin to embrace the embrace that is big enough to bring it all to the heart space so that it can be transformed, transmuted, and made new. This is not serious. No, it seems like it is. This is not serious. It is not meant to be serious. But we are meant to walk this way together. Because the way that's calling us forth, the way of Mary, is all about relationship. We've individualized and we've individuated. We've individualized by making ourselves separate. We've individuated by declaring ourselves to be as Christ, to follow the example life of love. And now we integrate it all in this wholeness, in this new way of being. And this is how we shift the world that we see and create and refine paradise and heaven. It isn't this way. Take a breath. I want to give honor to the one named Charles Fillmore, who is co-founder of Unity. He talked about this. Towards the end of his ministry, he spoke about this, and this is what he called it. So just in case you're thinking, she's wacko. This has been out there, and by our co-founder. And he called it the regeneration of man. Today, he would call it the regeneration of the child of God, or the regeneration of man and woman. But I want you to listen to this. He says, regeneration follows generation in the development of us. Generation sustains and perpetuates the human. Regeneration unfolds and glorifies the divine. So, we're not saying that we don't walk forth as the elevated self as human. It's that we are both human and divine. It's integration. And that the light expels the darkness, but it doesn't judge it. This is a no judgment zone process. He goes on to say, a change in which abundant spiritual life, even eternal life, is incorporated into the body. The transformation that takes place through bringing all the forces of mind and body to the support of the Christ ideal, the unification of spirit, soul, and body in spiritual oneness. And he did believe in the resurrected body of us as we shift, of walking forth as the resurrected one. And so take a breath with me. We are about the ways of creation, that we carry and bring with us the previous season, and we become willing to evolve in a new season. And that the way that you are called, the calling of your heart, is the way that is shown for you. And so next week we will distinguish a little bit about these two different ways, and it being Mother's Day, we will focus on the way of Mary. Thank goodness it's time that divine feminine has been pushed aside long enough. We can't hobble forward any longer, that it's time to bring it all together. And this is not about gender, folks. This is about the qualities of the divine and the integration of them all into wholeness. And so take a breath with me. And as we take this breath, shift in your seat. Allow the spine to straighten, the neck to elongate. Imagine the crown opening, the third eye opening, your throat chakra, the heart space, the intentional and creative energies, and that you are this conduit. That we are each the creator of this experience. And I'm going to invite you to breathe that in. I'm going to invite you to put a little smile on your face to remind you that it's not serious. To inform your entire being that this is good news. That we are embarking upon a new season together, and that as we do so, we rise. We rise, we rise. And come Monday, not just tomorrow, but after you leave here, to keep taking those breaths, allowing yourself to rise, and moment by moment, step by step, surrender to spirit first, and know yourself as spirit and the creator of your experience. And so it is. Amen. 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 Thank you.